Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game tickets from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
And now, for fans of the 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers, this is Cheesehead TV Live.
Cheetahs don't stretch and neither do we.
I think you're an idiot. And I mean that with the most respect possible that I can give to an idiot.
Packers Hall of Fame quarterback Jay Cutler.
It's not as fun to say as Equinemius.
That is a perfect example of a wrong opinion. Ring the bell. All right, welcome back, Packers fans. It's another edition of Cheesehead TV Live at the Watershed in Tempe, Arizona. It is game day. Packers' first Sunday game of the season, their first home game of the season. They're finally playing a 12 noon game. I am Jason Perone of Cheesehead TV. Along with me, the crossed-out X-through Twitter handle, Jeremy VanDerLinden. How are you, partner?
I'm good, man. It's game day. It is game day, and it's beautiful here in Arizona. People here are still eating their breakfast.
It is. We got some rain, and it cooled it off. Like, it is gorgeous for this early in September. So we are very fortunate. And in Green Bay, there could be some rain today.
That's right.
But it's going to be 70 degrees on the field, overcast, and then a little bit of rain towards the end of the game. So we'll see if that holds or not. But, all right, so Packers-Vikings. It has been almost 3 years since the Packers have beaten the Vikings. It's ridiculous. Time to exercise that demon. Right? Okay, so as we always do, before we get into the keys to the game and start talking about the game, we've got the inactive list. Jeremy.
All right, so the inactives for the Vikings. I'm going to hack some of these. It's just the way it is. I got it right here. Mackenzie Alexander, which is great for the Packers. One of their top three corners is out. Pat Elflein, their starting left guard is out, which they already had left guard issues, so that's great. Ben Gedeon is a linebacker. He's out. Jalen Holmes, which actually I think I had Holmes pegged to be their nickel back.
Holmes is a defensive tackle.
He's a DT. So I can't remember that kid's name. I'll look that up later. So let's see. Mike Hughes also out, so that's one of their top four corners. Udo, not even going to try to read his first name. Very difficult. Armin Watts, also out. So then for the Packers, we got Oren Burks, Kadar Holman, Kingsley Kiki, which is still a surprise to me. I'd like to see him in a regular season game.
Yep.
Cole Madison, Lucas Patrick, Darius Shepard, and Dexter Williams are your Packers inactives for today.
That's interesting because that must mean, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be the Vitale train today. We see a lot of Danny Vitale at fullback.
I can only hope.
He'll probably score.
Only hope.
Who's going to score the first home touchdown this season for your sake? And then the former TTSOer in you, I hope it's a fullback.
I do too.
Danny Vitale, baby.
I think it's going to be Jimmy Graham. That's my guess.
All right. So somebody said got to tighten up on TJ Hawkinson today. That must be in your fantasy team. That's Sly Upa.
Yeah, I'm not listening.
In the chat. That must be for your fantasy football team because
I'm glad they're not playing him today.
I don't think the Lions would trade Hawkinson to the Vikings. That would be a bad move.
Yeah.
Speaking of trades, though, there's been a lot of buzz lately about whether or not the Packers should get in the conversation for Lions defensive back or Lions. See,
Miami's DB.
Miami's defensive back, Minkah Fitzpatrick. So real quickly, I would just say, if you have an opportunity to grab that kind of a player on his rookie contract with the majority of his contract already paid by his original team because they are a dumpster fire, you've got to take advantage of it. So I don't know if it's going to happen. I just at least hope that Brian Gutekunst is in the conversation, has made an offer. If Miami doesn't choose them and doesn't trade with them, so be it, but at least try.
Yeah, I agree. Try, because there are multiple teams that are. I think they said up to 5 teams so far have inquired about Minkah Fitzpatrick, so there's no reason not to get in on the conversation, and maybe you can surprise yourself and get him cheaper than what everybody's saying. So it sounds like the Dolphins are looking for a first-round pick and some more.
So they upped it.
Because
originally it was a second, now it's a one.
They want a one and then some extra.
So there's a good market for him, and that makes sense. He was a first-round pick, and so you would assume if you're going to flip him this early that you want the most premium thing you can possibly get. So maybe the Dolphins aren't totally lame.
Yeah.
Maybe they totally get. All right. So moving on to the whole Packers angle here. So they're going to honor
real quick. The DB I was talking about is Jaron Kearse. He will be their nickelback. He's actually a safety, and he'll come in and play.
Yeah. So it's at left guard. That's where Kenny Clark lines up. Zadarius Smith. So the Packers front could have some opportunities unless this rookie is a hidden gem that no one knows about. So. Yep. as far as the Packers are going to honor Bart Starr today,
which is great.
Which is
Love
something
it.
they're going to do. Now, the last couple times they've tried to honor legends during games or at games.
We don't talk about
the
this,
actual
Jason.
games haven't gone well. So
we're not talking
hopefully
about
that trend reverses. But home opener, very exciting. Packers football's back. It's Matt LaFleur's first game at Lambeau Field.
That's
and the
right.
Packers are going to be home now for the next 5 out of 6 games.
Dang, that's a lot.
And they got a Thursday night game,
lot.
so they'll play next Sunday again. They'll host the Denver Broncos. Then 4 days later, they have the Philadelphia Eagles come into town. So
You know what that means, though?
they're playing
Late in the
3 games
season-
in the next. They're playing 3 games in the next 14 days.
Late in the season, they'll be away a lot. That's what that means.
Yeah.
They're doing all this up front. They're going to be away a lot late in the season. So,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a bad thing. If they play in a dome late in the season, I'm okay with that.
Right.
That sounds great to
Yeah.
me. I'm happy with that. So,
Yeah.
okay, you want to get into the offense?
Yeah, let's do that.
Keys to the game.
Offense. Blitz. Rodgers steps away, in trouble, throws as he's hit, and it is a pop. It is touchdown. Adams. How did he catch that?
All right, so offensively, the Packers have to obviously. I don't think 10-3 is going to cut it against the Vikings. So
No, I don't think
they
so.
got to get on the board early. And I think the reason why is last week Dalvin Cook went off on Atlanta, and he's a threat to run the football. Now, with the offensive line being a little shaken up a little bit today, is that going to be a factor? I don't know. It could be. But if you force Kirk Cousins to throw the ball more than 40 times, this isn't last season. I think that plays right into the Packers' hand if he has to throw
So to
a lot.
start offense, we are going to talk a little defense because if the Packers can keep the Vikings in a passing situation, so if the Packers offense can get rolling just enough to keep the Vikings in a passing situation, like that's an absolute requirement today. So the offense needs to come out firing right away. They need to get some points on the board pretty quickly, and they need to keep the Vikings in a situation where they got to try to pass the ball. It's up to the offense to make that happen. The defense then needs to go out and do what they got to do.
Right.
But first of all, offense. Offense needs to move the ball. They need to score, and they need to do it quickly. Get on the board. That needs to happen right away.
Right. No, absolutely. One of the things that we discovered and we found was that the offensive line for the Packers has been a big topic of discussion, and you've got Lane Taylor coming back, and there was some talk about whether Elton Jenkins should start over him at left guard. On the right side of the line, you got Billy Turner at right guard.
Yep.
Billy Turner struggled a little bit. He struggled a little bit this last game, and you had some grades that you found.
So, yeah, week 1 against the Bears, obviously last year's number 1 defense, but the Vikings defense isn't exactly a pushover. So this isn't going to be really a break for this offensive line. So the guards need to play better. In week 1, Billy Turner was ranked as the 68th best guard in the NFL. He had a terrible grade for pass protection, 37.3. His saving grace for the week was 76.2 for his run grade, but his passing grade was terrible. And one of his big issues was that he was laid out of his stance a lot in that football game. So he's going to need to step that up.
Based on my simple math, there are 32 NFL teams, and there's 2 guards on each team, which means that's 64 guards.
Yeah.
And Billy Turner was 68th.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
Not ideal. So hopefully that's been addressed. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a high-priced veteran that they brought in here to potentially be the future at right tackle. And I know when you're playing a position other than what your preferred spot is, maybe he's better on the outside. You're going to struggle a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's bad. That's
Well,
a potential issue.
New
especially
system that he's, I mean, it's not new for him. The zone run is not really new for him. And he graded well as a zone run blocker. But with a new team, first game against the Bears, that Bears defensive front is no joke. That's a tough ask for your first game. So give him a little bit of a pass, but in week 2 here, he's going to have to get it. He's going to have to step it up at least a little bit. And actually, this is a surprise to me, and it might be to you too. Lane Taylor was actually rated as the 31st best guard in the NFL last week. So,
some of those things are objective, and it depends on how many snaps they played, how many opportunities they had, how many plays were run to their side, and they were actually involved in.
Yep.
There's a lot that goes into offensive line grades, and I don't think it's apples to apples in every case.
Right. Yeah,
But
that's fair.
the line does need to play well today because one thing the Packers have to do, and I feel like we're a broken record and we say it every single week, is they've got to establish the run. Now, with Dexter Williams being out, and he didn't play a bunch this in the first game. I don't think he got any snaps, did he? If he did, I didn't see it.
No, he did not play last week.
And it's So you're talking about Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, Danny Vitale, and establishing the run game against that still very active, very stacked Vikings defense is a tall ask. But Matt LaFleur's offense is predicated, as we know, on the play action. If you don't establish the run, you got no play action.
Well, let me give you some good news. Last year, the Vikings had the 9th best defense overall in yards. Okay, they were 3rd against the pass. They were 15th against the run. So if you're going to get the run going, you're more likely going to do it against the Vikings than you are against the Bears. And not to say it's apples to apples again. It's a new season and things change, right? But the Bears' defensive front is much better than the Vikings' defensive front, and that's where the Packers can win against this Vikings team. They need to get the ball moving on the ground so that they can open up the play-action pass. Peter Bukowski talked about this week. He said, let's see, Aaron Rodgers was 4 of 5 on play-action passes.
Yep.
He had 84 yards for a quarterback rating of 118.8. Okay, the rest of his passes on his standard dropbacks, 14 of 25, 119 yards for a grade of 81.9. So 20 more attempts for only 35 more yards is rough. That's not great. So play action pass last week was very good, but they need to establish the run so they can use it more. And that was actually something we thought that they would do. Coming into the season, we'd be seeing play action pass more than they did in week 1. They didn't use it as much as I think some fans expected. 5 times in week 1, but they couldn't establish the run. So I understand
the offense couldn't establish anything. Obviously, They only scored 10 points, so there wasn't much to be had there. Now, one thing the Packers have to do, and this is not always a given, Aaron Rodgers is a transcendent quarterback. He's a generational talent. He's a future Hall of Famer, all those things, Super Bowl winner. But when it comes to some of the obvious things and obvious opportunities that they've had over the past, and this was true in the previous regime as well, they don't always tend to take advantage of what you would obviously hope that they could. So today, the Vikings secondary is without several key players. You want to see the Rodgers in the offense pick on those defensive backs and take advantage and get some success there.
Yep.
It just doesn't always happen. Now, Mike Zimmer is a defensive-minded head coach. He's a game planner. He's really good. He's had a lot of success against Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to be a good battle there. But for the love of God, for once, do the obvious and take advantage of it. And, move the ball through the air. You've got one of the best passers in the history of the game.
So here, I just talked about the Vikings' run defense, the yards they gave up last year, and being ranked 15th and being ranked 3rd against the pass last year. But now with the defensive back issues that they have today, it's a good chance for the Packers to move the ball through the air as well. Mackenzie Alexander and Mike Hughes are both out in this game. That's their third and fourth corners. So they're going to be depending on some depth here. It's going to be Chris Boyd and Nate Meters, who they just brought up from the practice squad. They're going to be playing meaningful snaps today. And they actually released, I don't have his name here, the guy that was anticipated to be that guy was released this week. So now they're digging a little further into that depth chart. And if they're releasing a guy, obviously they think one of these two is going to fill that void. But they are beat up at defensive back right now, and Aaron Rodgers needs to take advantage of that. They need to pick on those guys. It's a great opportunity for Geronimo, MVS, Trevor Davis. Even Jake Kumaro needs to get on the field. It's a good chance for those guys to put up some numbers and score some touchdowns. But with that being said, Davante Adams today, it'll be hard to double him when you have all that going on with your defensive backs.
Will the road be open or will the road be closed?
It's always open.
Road's open.
The road's always open.
Well, the one thing he didn't talk about and that everyone should kind of caution themselves against is we all get very excited about the tight ends and Jimmy Graham and Robert Tonyan and Mercedes Lewis even. I don't think the tight ends are going to have a big game in this one because that middle of the Vikings defense is still really good and they cover the tight ends well. So It's going to be on the perimeter, the outside. It's going to be the wide receivers and the running backs more so than the tight ends. So, if Graham and Tonyan have modest days or you don't see them come up in the stat sheet, it's not like they aren't good. That's not where you're going to eat against this Minnesota defense.
Yeah, and I think so. That's, yes, a concern in the middle, but I think that this offense being predicated on matchups and trying to get those matchups the way you want them, they are going to be making an effort today to get those tight ends covered by DBs, and you're going to see that happen. And Jimmy Graham against the defensive back, regardless of how slow he is still beneficial because he's freaking huge.
Yeah.
So they are going to try to do that, as well as moving Davante Adams into the slot and hoping Xavier Rhodes doesn't go in there with him. And even if he does, it doesn't freaking matter. He's Davante Adams.
Right. So here's the other thing, too. Active Minnesota defense, even though they've got some guys out, they are savvy, and the Packers have to protect the football.
Yep.
So you can't turn it over, and I don't expect Aaron Rodgers to be inaccurate. But one thing that I always get concerned about, or that does concern me, is you get the wide receivers running their routes, and then all of a sudden balls get tipped in the air, and it gets picked off.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of fluky things I'm trying to say you have to avoid against this Vikings team. Don't get picked off. Hold on to the football. They're going to come after it. They're going to try to create some extra possessions with being, punching the ball out and such. You've got to protect the football. We say this every week, but the Packers just happen to be starting against 4 pretty good defenses. I mean,
right
Denver,
away this season,
Denver's still got a good defense as far as I know, even though they didn't beat the Raiders this past week. And then the Eagles, it's just a very tough start.
Yeah, it is a tough start.
So those
for
are
an
the
offense
keys.
that's still got to work on getting into a groove, and then they got to play these guys right out the gate. If they could steal some wins in these first 4 weeks, that would just be so huge for the rest of the season.
I don't know if it's stealing. At this point, they've already stolen the only one that I thought they were going to steal. I guess the Eagles game for me is another one because it's on a short week, but they're at home, and Philly has to travel on a short week.
Right.
When you're the road team on that Thursday night game, I mean, the Packers they played on Thursday night as the opener, but they weren't coming off of having just played on Sunday. They played 7 days prior. None of the starters played. So their Thursday night situation this season is good. They got very, very fortunate.
Yes, they did.
They're stealing some extra time off this earlier in the season, and hopefully that'll keep them fresh for a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the offensive side of things.
So quick, let's recap. I'll give the points here. So the keys to the game for the offense: to get an early lead and keep the pressure off the defense, better guard play, get the run game going and hit that play action pass, pick on the Vikings' lack of depth at defensive back, and no turnovers. And I know no turnovers, obviously, like every week, and you want no turnovers. But I believe this is going to be a low-scoring game, or at least it's going to be a close game, and one turnover can really be the difference in a game like that. So no turnovers today for the Packers. They have to protect the ball. They just have to protect the ball in a game where the offense has not shown that they're even ready to hit a groove yet, and it's going to be sloppy.
Yep.
So.
Right. Should we move to the defensive side of the ball?
Let's do it.
All right.
Keys to the game.
Defense. They bring everybody. Allen trying to get out of trouble. Allen chucks it downfield. Intercepted. Allen has it picked off. Jair Alexander is brought down, and the Bills come up empty.
Okay, defensively, the Packers played a great game against the Bears. They only scored 3 points, couldn't find the end zone. Yes. Adrian Amos with a huge interception against his former team. All the cool things happened, and it was beautiful and lovely. So last week, there was a guy on the Vikings offense that kind of had a pretty big game. We've talked about him already, Dalvin Cook.
Yep. Got
to contain Dalvin Cook, got to stop the run. So with the offensive line of Minnesota being a little bit shaken up, I'm wondering if they're going to be able to get to the outside. But the Packers finally have the horses to contain if they do get to kind of stop that type of rushing attack.
Yeah, we talked about that last week with the size that they added at outside linebacker. They have the ability now to contain the edge, and they did that really well against the Bears last week, and I think that'll continue this week against this Vikings team who's going to try to run the ball. So what you want to do is try to contain and force Dalvin Cook to deal with Kenny Clark and Blake Martinez in the middle. Force him to stay inside, and those guys in the middle will clean up. Don't put your corners in a position where they have to fix a play because you broke it, okay? It's nice to see that they can contain, and then Jair can use that speed to break in and finish a tackle when Delvin's trying to get outside. But don't let the Vikings get in a position where they're running wild outside today, because that's where they're going to succeed running the ball, or at least they're going to try. So I think the best thing to do is keep him inside. Make him deal with Kenny Clark. Kenny will clean it up. Blake Martinez will be right there. That's the strongest spot for the Packers defense to take care of the run game. So they got to contain.
Gary Kubiak is involved. He's part of the Minnesota Vikings coaching staff. So one thing I think we could see is Minnesota trying to steal possessions, points, yards. Because of the game that Dalvin Cook had and because he might be such a key for the defense, I could see Minnesota trying to take some play-action shots deep, like right out of the gate. Their first snap could be a play-action, and they could try to hit like Thielen deep or something like that. So hopefully the Packers secondary is ready for that because it's all bets. All bets are off.
Yep.
All bets are off. It's the Vikings, and they just have to find a way to win. Man, it is filling up in here.
Yep.
I know everyone can't see the crowd here at the Watershed in Tempe. We got celebrities, we've got Packers fans, we got all the really cool things going on here. How are we doing, Watershed? Are we ready for some Packers football today?
All right. Hey, real quick, if you're in the YouTube chat, make sure you hit that like button And if you're watching the video and you like what we're doing, make sure you hit that like button on YouTube. Also subscribe. If you're in the bar here and you want to subscribe, go to Cheesehead TV on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Lots of content there, and you'll get Jason and I twice a week during the season. We will be making
that may
a show.
or may not be a benefit to you. I don't know.
But
depending
not
on how
this
you
week.
see it. Depending on how you see it.
Not this week. No show, no midweek show for us.
All right, everybody. Dan, your faithful owner, is here. Up front here. It's lit.
Yeah.
It is. Oh, that's right. It's Dan's birthday. It's Dan's birthday today, everybody. Should we sing a little happy birthday after the show?
Oh, we will. Yeah, we absolutely will. All right.
Okay,
so let's
moving
get
on
back
the
to
defensive
this.
side. So contain the run game. Here's the other thing too, though. I don't feel like in either game last year did Kirk Cousins. Now he did get taken to the turf. Unfortunately, the ref said that apparently we were too mean. Packers were too mean. Clay Matthews was too mean. They didn't get anywhere near enough pressure on Kirk Cousins last season. It needs to change this season. They've got to pressure Cousins, get in his face all day and get in his head.
Yep.
He will start to rattle. When the play breaks down, it's not his forte, and that's when he's more apt to throw you one.
So they do have their interior line issues, and it just got worse today. They're going to be playing a rookie left guard. So left guard and center are very weak for them. So expect pressure to come up the middle right there. They are going to do more of those stunts like we saw last week, and that's a weekly thing. We're going to see lots of those stunts where the outside guy jumps in, and that worked a lot against the Bears last week. But expect to see Zadarius Smith all over that defensive line, and I think he's going to line up over that guard, that left guard, and in the A gap against the center. He's going to be putting a lot of pressure on them right there in the interior, which he actually succeeds at a little more than he does on the outside. So actually, I have a little video here. Let's take a look of Zadarius Smith bouncing around the defensive line.
What's up, dude? Good, how are you? Man, Z had such a good game against the Bears, and
Dude.
I think he's gonna be there every week. He's that kind of guy. He's gonna be there every week. But I don't know if they've got a good plan for him. I'm still not worried because you still have Preston Smith. Sounded like one of the things the Packers were successful in doing is putting both of them on the same side last week. They had good success with that. And then I think maybe it might be some of the other guys that might eat. You could actually see Rashawn Gary could potentially have a decent game.
Oh, he could. Actually, I didn't load any Rashawn Gary clips, but there was one that I downloaded. I didn't put it into the show. I should have, where Gary comes free on a stunt, and he just about whacks the quarterback. He just about gets Trubisky. It actually in the game or the show during the week, I said it was a sack by Preston Smith. It wasn't. It was an incomplete pass, but Preston Smith did show up at the end and get a hit on the quarterback. But that pressure that caused the incomplete pass was Rashawn Gary right in Trubisky's face coming up the A gap. So Rashawn Gary will have a shot today to make that happen. But you talked about the Smith brothers. Let's take a look at this. I have a play here. It's one play. It repeats a few times so you can see it. The Smith brothers working well together. Let's take a look at it. So here from Next Gen Stats, we have, I did read this on the show on Tuesday, but it is so impressive the way that Zadarius Smith played. Zadarius generated 5 of 7 pressures aligned as an interior defensive lineman. So look for that today. That's going to be the case. And also from Next Gen Stats, Zadarius Smith, and let's see where I got it at. When defensive coordinator Mike Pettin deployed Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith on the same side, the Packers generated pressure on 50% of dropbacks. That's going to happen today. You will see Preston Smith playing over the left tackle, and then you're going to see Zadarius Smith inside on that guard or in that A gap. And then they got to deal with Kenny Clark somehow. Okay? Kenny Clark's still there.
Kenny Clark's, and they got a rookie in there trying to do it.
Yeah, and then guess what? That's when they'll bring Gary on the other side, and they'll run a stunt, and Gary will show up in the middle. this Packers defensive front is absolute
Well, the whole
trouble
defense,
for
because now on
everyone.
the back end, they've got guys that can cover the receivers.
Absolutely.
And Thielen's not going to be running around wild. They might make some catches. They're going to get theirs. Stephon Diggs is kind of like Devontae Adams. His footwork alone will get him a few catches. But if you keep those short gains and you minimize the run after the catch, which is something the Packers are doing better this year, tackling, then it's not as detrimental.
Real quick, I do want to say thanks to Ben Fennell and Brandon Thorne for the video. I snagged those from you guys. I really appreciate it, not having to do more video work to make that happen.
But they do a great job.
They do
so
a great
give those
job.
guys
They
a follow
do.
because they do a good job of breaking down film and at least giving one perspective. And again, Pro Football Focus, we use those grades and we talk about those. That's not the end-all, be-all. They make mistakes too, but they do a decent job. One guy who does a good job is former Cheesehead TV contributor Andy Herman, who grades the Pack every week.
Yeah.
And he is now over with Packer Report. And he's still going to continue to do his Grading the Pack series, and he's actually done a pretty good job, and he matches up with a lot of what you see on the screen. So give Andy a follow and check him out. He's also the founder of the Pack-A-Day podcast, which I contribute to.
That's right.
Kind of cool.
That is right.
So any last thoughts here before we do our predictions?
I don't really have any, but I do want to say this. If you enjoy the show and you enjoy what we do, you can support us at patreon.com, Cheesehead TV Live. Everything that we do on the show, we do out of love. We don't really make a whole lot of money on this, do we, Jason? This is not really an income for us. So if you do want to support us and you want to see the show grow, that's a way for you to do that. Patreon.com/Cheesehead TV Live. Head over there, show us your love, show us some support. That would be great. And then join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/CHTV Live. Join the Facebook group. We do giveaways. We do all kinds of fun stuff. Actually, Amber won a giveaway last week, and I forgot it. So
Amber wins every week.
I forgot to bring it.
Amber wins every week.
Amber's here in the bar, and she did win. She did win the 8x10 of Blake Martinez, so I'll have to bring that to her. Anyway, so that's all I got. You ready for predictions or what?
At all. Let's do it. Let's do predictions.
We'll start off with you. You go ahead.
Whoa, you're going to kick off with me?
Yeah.
Well, I said earlier this season before this thing started that I didn't think the Packers were going to win game one, but week 2 home game coming out, they've got a little bit extra juice. They want to beat the Vikings. They want to end this losing streak that they have that's almost been 1,000 days long. And I said they're going to win their home opener, and that this is where they're going to get Matt LaFleur his first victory as head coach. Well, he's already got his first victory out of the way. So how about his first victory at home?
I like it.
In front of the home crowd.
I like it.
I don't think it's going to be incredibly high scoring. I think it's going to be somewhere around along the lines of 20-13, 23-13.
Okay.
But I like the Packers to get an early lead and then defense to put the pressure on. I think defensively they'll come out playing really well to start.
Yeah.
I just think the offense might struggle a little bit out of the gate where it's like, okay, we have an opportunity to go up big. The offense might sputter a little bit, but they'll get it together, and they'll eventually score a couple touchdowns, and then it's going to be the narrative of the slow roll. But it's Packers. Packers to go 2-0 and start 2-0 in the division, and they've got a really good path on the way to the end of the season.
I like it. All right. I say it's going to be a sloppy game, and it's going to be really close. Okay, it's not going to be neither offense is really going to go off. It's going to be a really close game. I have the Packers winning this game 21-20. It is going to suck because it's going to go right down to the end, and we're all going to be stressed. But they're going to come away with a win, and everything is going to be just fine. They will be 2-0 after week 2. The Packers will start off the season really, really well.
All right. So 2 Packers, 0 Vikings. A lot of Vikings fans in the stands today. People are selling their tickets, man.
That's because they're mad that the Packers want them to stand up for the game. I don't know if you guys saw this week. Aaron Rodgers talking in a press conference at his locker, wanting fans to stand up and not tell other fans to sit down at Lambeau Field, which is a common issue. Packers fans have become too comfortable at Lambeau, and it is not loud enough. And they are begging for Packers fans to be more active in the stands. And Aaron Rodgers also said, please don't do the wave when we're on offense. Listen, Packers fans, I think, are one of the smartest groups of fans in the NFL. It is absolutely embarrassing that one of the best quarterbacks in the league has to request that you not do the wave when they're on offense. It sucks, okay? Those are simple things. Be loud when we're on defense. Sit down when we're on offense. Hey, people who don't want to stand, you can sit when they're on offense. That's perfect time for you.
It's a different crowd at Lambeau, but they still get loud. They're still Packers fans, and even if they're not from Wisconsin or live in Green Bay, they come from far and wide a lot to support their team. So it is time to do one thing and one thing only today. Go, Pack, go. Any final thoughts, Jeremy?
Nope, that is it. I just want to say we didn't get to any questions in the chat today. That won't necessarily be common, so please keep sending your questions. Thank